Hello guys, how are you?
I'm Hardeep Singh. Welcome back to your own YouTube channel. IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test, and speaking, you got guesswork. Please, guys, participate in everyday listening and reading practice test to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Press the bell icon for the upcoming notifications. Don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams.
Part 1.
You will hear a receptionist and a teacher talking about classes at a community college. Read questions 1 to 4.
Good evening. How may I help you?
My name's Amal Nouri. I'm a new teacher.
Nice to meet you, Amaral. You're teaching Arabic, aren't you?
Spanish, actually. I'm from Argentina. My relatives moved there a long time ago. You'd be surprised how big the Arab community is in Latin America.
But Spanish isn't on tonight. It's tomorrow, Wednesday.
I know. I just thought I'd introduce myself. When I came for my interview, I only met the principal.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes, Trevor Andrews. I must say he made me feel welcome, especially since he speaks Spanish himself.
Trevor's a lovely guy. We're going to miss him when he leaves at the end of the term.
Oh, why is he leaving? Has he found another job?
No, he's retiring. He wants to spend more time with his grandchildren.
Right. He did mention them to me.
Did Trevor also mention that he likes to sit in on new teachers' classes, just for a few minutes? It's the policy of the college that new teachers are observed either by Trevor or by the vice principal. I'm sure it's in your contract.
Probably.
Don't worry, it's all quite informal. You won't need to submit a lesson plan. Actually, student feedback at the end of the term is taken more seriously.
I see.
One more piece of advice, Amaral. Don't be upset about the fact that you'll start the term with 15 students but end up with 5. That's just what happens with evening classes. People sign up for these things without really knowing what's involved, or something else comes up on that night. The high dropout rate is no reflection on your teaching.
Thanks for the tip. Anyway, the real reason I'm here tonight is that I'd like to enroll in a class. I saw in the contract that teachers can take one class themselves, paying only 10% of tuition, which seems a pretty good deal.
Indeed, when I was teaching keyboarding skills, I did Korean and car maintenance. However, for a few courses, like life drawing, where students have to pay for a model, or cooking with seafood, where the ingredients are expensive, I'm afraid teachers can't pay only 10%. They have to pay the full fee.
Before you listen to the rest of the conversation, you have 30 seconds to read questions 5 to 10.
So, Amaral, what would you like to do?
I'm interested in Sally Burton's class called Working with Wool. I read about her in the local paper.
Yes, she's very popular.
She made those amazing sculptures near the town hall. I'd no idea that wool could be used in such huge artworks. I'd always thought of it just in clothing or carpets.
Unfortunately, Sally's class is full. You see, she holds it in her studio, so she only accepts 7 students, and we've already had 7 enrollments. I could put you on the waiting list.
It's all right. My second choice was watercolor painting on Tuesdays and Fridays. Yikes! There's a class tonight.
Kostia's class is also popular, but someone's just canceled, so there is a place for you.
Great.
For the first few nights, he's in room 14, but later in the term, when it's lighter in the evening, he takes his class on excursions to the river. There were some gorgeous paintings of the river in the end-of-term exhibition last year.
Sounds good. By the way, where will my class be tomorrow?
I'm not sure yet. We've had to make a few changes, but I'll give you a call or send you a text when I know.
Okay.
I don't think I've got your phone number.
It's 0212 064 993.
993 or 553?
993.
Thanks. Lovely to meet you, Amaral. I hope you'll enjoy your time with us.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
You will hear a woman talking to voluntary guides at an art gallery. Before you listen, you have 30 seconds to read questions 11 to 14.
Good morning, I'm Wendy McEwen. Please call me Wendy. I train volunteers at the gallery, and it's my great pleasure to meet you today. To begin, I'd like to quote from a speech made in 1882 by our first director, Eliezer Montefiore. He said the Australian public should be afforded every facility to avail themselves of the educational and civilising influence engendered by an exhibition of works bought at the public expense. We now live in a world where the notion of civilization is seldom discussed, so let me mention some of its synonyms: enlightenment, refinement, and conformity with the standards of a highly developed society. In my view, this is what the creation and enjoyment of art can do for the public: conform, refine, and enlighten. The idea of civilization may be unfashionable, but an interest in different civilizations has certainly grown. Australian art is well represented in our collection. We have some wonderful paintings by Grace Cossington-Smith and Arthur Boyd, but there are Asian and European works to rival those abroad. In fact, the single most expensive purchase this gallery has ever made was a $16.2 million landscape painted in 1888 by Paul Cézanne. Visitors will ask you for this figure, just as they'll be curious about Cézanne's career as a banker in France and his time with his lover in Tahiti. Sometimes it seems the public is more interested in trivia than in art, so it's your job to inform about the techniques of production, the themes an artwork deals with, as well as the culture from which it came. Elevate cultural discourse rather than stoop to the level of the popular press. Bear in mind those words of Eliezer Montefiore.
Before you listen to the rest of the talk, you have 30 seconds to read questions 15 to 20.
While guides are diverse, guiding is systematic. By this, I mean we adhere to standardised delivery, whether tours be for viewers on Saturday morning, for school groups, or for VIPs. Standardised delivery means that guides give the public virtually the same information about the same artworks. Sure, we all have our personal styles, but the content needs to be the same. To that end, guides are tested on information before taking their first tour. Guides also have to keep an eye on the clock. Guided tours last 1 hour. Since the building is large, part of that time is taken up in walking as well as mentioning the location of toilets, fire exits and drinking fountains. After recent additions, the gallery is twice the size it was in 2013. So ask your group where they'd like to go first. Then calculate how many artworks you can see on each level. Aim for a total of 14 in your hour. In each room, there's lots to see, but you'll only be talking about 1 or 2 items. By all means, when people in your group want to know about a work not on your list, go to it, but be brief. For the iconic works by Australian painters, you'll need to take longer. Some of these iconic works are part of the school curriculum, and many are known to international visitors who come just to see them. In the past, guides stood beside an artwork and gave a short speech. To a certain extent, that's still what happens with an audio tour. However, we now try to involve the public. One technique is called elicitation, when a guide asks questions about an artwork to see what knowledge already exists among the visitors. That way, you don't appear as the ultimate authority, and often visitors know considerably more than you. On that note, there will be times when you need to intervene, to let others in the group speak, to alter misconceptions, or simply to move on. As I said earlier, before you're let loose on the public, each voluntary guide is evaluated. Oh, that reminds me. I recall from your applications that 2 of you are Japanese speakers, so we'll probably ask you to take around groups of Japanese. Now, let's go into the gallery itself.
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
You will hear 2 students discussing an assignment they are doing on business plans. Before you listen, you have 30 seconds to read questions 21 to 26.
I don't know, Luca. 800 words don't seem like many to me.
Except I've only written 450.
Why don't you talk through what you've got? And I can suggest where you might add some in?
I can show you my essay, if you like, on my computer.
Telling me about it may be better. It will help you clarify what you have, and you'll probably notice what's missing as you speak. So what is a business plan?
Something that projects ahead for at least 3 years.
Something?
Well, in essence, it's,
An analysis of the current situation a business finds itself in, and a projection of its growth.
right.
And what else?
Basically, I suppose...
What about the standards a business plan creates?
Oh, yeah. The plan creates standards and it discusses viability.
Indeed. Who does it provide a tool for?
Investors. I mean, potential investors. Let me turn on my computer to type that in. It discusses viability and provides a sales tool for potential investors.
Good. Now, what about the 5 steps involved in creating the plan?
5? I wrote down 3 in the lecture. 1, carry out a situational analysis. 2, understand the operating environment. And 3, define business objectives. Were there any others?
I'm sure there were 5, but I've forgotten them myself now.
Oh, I remember. Something about formulating strategies.
Yes, formulate strategies to follow.
And 5?
Design controls to measure success. though I've no idea what those controls might be.
Me neither. I don't have any real-world experience for this course. I'm doing it because my cousin told me it was easy.
Anyway, the last thing to note in the essay that there's not just one business plan. A company usually composes separate plans for all sections of the master plan. That means another marketing plan, another production plan, etc.
I had no idea there was so much planning. How do businesses have any time to actually work?
Before you listen to the rest of the conversation, you have 30 seconds to read questions 27 to 30.
Let's look at the short answers now. My friend who took this course last year said the final exam contained the short answers from this assignment and the next one.
Then I'd better learn them off by heart.
So without reading from your computer screen, what are the 5 functions a business can be divided into?
You mean MP3F?
Yes.
M for marketing, the 3 Ps for purchasing, production, and what's the last one?
Personnel.
Right, personnel. And F for finance.
Good. I see you've remembered that the business profile and appendices open and close the plan. But I think your definition of appendices is a bit vague.
What's wrong with end notes?
Certainly, appendices are found at the end of the plan, but the phrase supporting documents might describe them more clearly.
Okay, I'll write that down. Supporting documents.
The key here is that there is support for every section of the plan because an investor wants to see a strong case presented for your business, to know you are not just making assertions.
Right.
The first few components of your business profile look fine. Business name, location, ownership structure.
And business activity is easy enough to describe.
True. But I'm afraid your market entry strategy and future objectives look a little thin.
The thing is, Natasha, I don't understand what a market entry strategy is, and future objectives seem equally nebulous.
I know what you mean. I see you've mentioned legal requirements in the business profile.
Don't you remember, the lecturer said that in today's environment of tight regulation, without this section in the plan, the whole business could end up being an expensive failure?
Oh, help. I forgot about legal requirements in my profile. Thanks for reminding me. I'm sorry, Luca. I'll have to go. Let's meet again after the tutorial.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
You will hear a lecture on the benefits of reading literature. Before you listen, you have 45 seconds to read questions 31 to 40.
Last week, my 16-year-old neighbour asked me to look over her essay on the value of reading. I read the text and was impressed by her elegant prose. But there was one glaring omission. Most of her essay was about how we read or why we read. In my opinion, how or why is far less important than what we read. no one today would deny that reading improves cognitive intelligence. I bet the top 3 students here are also the 3 biggest readers. However, a growing number of experts attribute literary fiction to a reader's enhanced capacity for emotional as well as cognitive intelligence. But what are emotional intelligence and literary fiction? Actually, emotional intelligence is a phrase popularized by the media. Academics like me prefer the term theory of mind, or TOM. TOM is the ability to attribute mental states, beliefs, intentions, desires, pretence, and knowledge to oneself and others, and to understand that others have states different from one's own. Notable deficits in TOM occur in people with schizophrenia, attention deficit, and autism spectrum disorders, or with neurotoxicity due to drug or alcohol abuse. What is literary fiction? Well, it's writing considered as classic, winning widespread acclaim, translated into many languages, and enduring over time. Think Jane Austen, Anton Chekhov, or F. Scott Fitzgerald, and people like Ala Aswani, Paulo Coelho, or Alice Munro. The vast majority of books, however, are not literary. They're non-fiction or popular fiction. Non-fiction deals with facts, and popular fiction with formulaic stories. True, in pop fiction, readers go on an emotional journey, often in exotic settings, but while events may be dramatic, the external and internal lives of characters are predictable. This means readers' expectations remain unchallenged. Their view of the world is intact.
Before you listen to the rest of the conversation, you have 30 seconds to read questions.
By contrast, literary fiction focuses on the psychological states of characters and on their complex interpersonal relationships. Some writers adopt a technique called stream of consciousness, in which they minutely describe what is occurring in a character's head. Others only allude to a character's state of mind. In the first instance, readers may be exposed to ways of perceiving the world quite different from their own. In the second, their need to interpret intentions or motivations expands their emotional problem-solving capacity. So, despite being set in the real, often humdrum world, literary works defy expectations by challenging prejudices and undermining stereotypes. 5 experiments by the New York academics David Kidd and Emanuele Castano have confirmed this. They invited hundreds of online participants to read extracts from non-fiction, popular fiction, or literary fiction, or not to read anything at all. On cognitive and emotional tests, Kidd and Castano demonstrated that readers of literary fiction performed better compared to readers of other genres, or those who did not read. It's conceivable that including literary fiction in the daily routine of prisons, as well as in schools and universities, would bear fruit. It is already known that those in the correctional system who receive credits towards liberal arts college degrees survive better on release. Medicating children with autism or ADHD has been fashionable, but having them read literature may improve their conditions. There are some lesser benefits to reading literary fiction. Firstly, it encourages discipline and connectedness. Discipline because the language or style may be complex, and a length of time is needed to finish it. Connectedness because readers identify strongly with great characters. Think about a generation of children who read the 7 Harry Potter books, devoting around 40 hours to them. An equivalent amount of time spent watching a TV series would not generate an equivalent emotional response. Secondly, neuroscientists in 2013 discovered enhanced neural activity in subjects who read fine literature daily. Those who read just before falling asleep were more likely to waken soothed and focused, unlike TV viewers. So why aren't schools, universities and prisons insisting on more literary fiction? Why aren't sales of Nobel Prize winners soaring? Some say life is too demanding. Common Sense Media, a San Francisco-based non-profit organization, produced a report called Why Aren't Teens Reading? It showed that currently 27% of 17-year-olds read for pleasure almost every day, whereas in 1984, 31% did. 30 years ago, 9% of 17-year-olds said they seldom or never read for pleasure. By 2014, those figures had tripled to 27%. Many respondents attribute this change to needing time for other life skills. But it is my argument that, as complexity increases, the young become more adept at dealing with it when they read literary fiction. So, did I suggest my neighbour redraft her essay? No. I gave her a copy of The Little Prince, a French classic from 1943, and asked her to pass it on to a friend when she'd finished.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
So guys, don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test and speaking, you get guesswork. Please guys, participate in everyday new IELTS listening and reading practice tests to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. For more IELTS material, visit my official website www.ieltsupdatesandrecentexams.com. The link is given below in the description. If you need PDF files of latest IELTS material, then please join my Telegram channel. So guys, please write your score below the comment section. Again, thanks for listening. God bless you all guys. Stay tuned, stay safe.